Hello there friends, welcome back to the channel for the penultimate episode of Fairy Gone. So, with the things coming to an end here, a lot of things happened last episode, right? Raydon was killed, kind of sad for me, although I could see it coming, judging from the way things were. In the end, we still don't really know if he's more on the good guy of the spectrum or the bad guy. Personally, I'm still of the opinion that he's part of the misguided guy with good intentions, part of the spectrum, right? But I guess it doesn't really matter now since he's dead, killed off by Griff, the sort of second in command of the Ainz Order, I guess you could say, and his fairy organ was reclaimed, and now we got one of the original fairies being revived, and which my best guess would be that it will promptly go out of control of the Ainz Order and kill every single one of them, as these things usually are. But yeah, anyways, it's now down to one big showdown between Maria and friends and whatnot versus the Ainz Order. And the fate of the fairies, I guess you could say. That I still believe is going to be one of the key outcomes of this battle. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Alright, so we started with the opening thing this time, and I skipped it. Let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. An unending dream. So what do you guys expect to happen once this dude is revived? I also like how there's no, complicated transplant surgery and whatnot. You just literally take out the organ, stick it in, and it's done. The Divine Beast. Not exactly the original fairy. Right. Come on. Let's get the ball rolling. We know that you guys are both going to... Now kiss. Just kidding, but still, it's the dialogue without the required, actual portrayal of the backstory and whatnot. I mean, I don't know. In another anime, it might have been Or under different circumstances, that might have been much more touching. Okay. So they were literally evaporated? Just like that? This dude is... really... like, come on, man. If it's a fight you want, why don't you go pick on the Divine Beast? Ooh, is this the actually first time we see her? Fairy? Damn, that is strong. Yeah, why don't you go fight against the Divine Beast, dude? Of course we gotta have the cliche back to back. Cool story, bro. Hmm. You guys have a height disadvantage. Oh man. I have no words. Like, whatever. Whatever. Like, what? Like, what was your big idea? I still have absolutely no idea what the Einsorder are thinking. Like, do they believe they'll go to, like, some equivalent of heaven by doing this?
さんの犠牲と大勢の努力でやっと平和な時代ってやつが見えてきた。それを守るために俺は戦う。平和か。平和だったらお前の女房や娘だって死なずに済んだ。お前は大事なものを失ってなかった。俺を語るな。全ては終わるべきだ。希望も絶望も終わらせる。終わってたわけ。力が終わらねえぞ。大事なものを奪われてずっと痛いんだろう。忘れたいのに忘れられなくて苦しいんだよな。お前の絶望は終わりがない。
So literally for Wolfran, it's just that because he lost his wife and child, so he just wants the world to end. Is that it?
その希望を打ち砕くのはいつも人だろうが俺たち自身だ。お前は誰も許せねえんだな。自分自身も全部ひっくるめて罰するつもりか。終わらせてしまえば罪も罰も必要ない。そう思うのかよ。叫べレッドフット。断ち切る。
Ooh. Damn. Better weapons can go against.
お前は今も大切な人を思い続けてる。その思いは消えねえだろ。大昔から人間はバカだから殺し合って何もかもぶち壊してきた。それでも生き残った者は人から人へ伝えて受け継いでこれから先も続いていく。たとえ数えきれないほど人が死んで町が国がなくなっても終わらない。お前が何をしたって終わらねえんだよ。それにな。
Okay.
俺たちが終わらせねえ。
Hmm.
なぜ殺さない。俺はそこまで優しくねえ。
Okay. I feel like this scene was handled a bit better. Like, I'm much more satisfied with this scene. Although, I would probably put a few more punches into Wolf. Damn, everything turns into sand. Like what happened with the other country. Aren't they dead already? Damn. Well, what's it saying? Wow. Why would it be happening to the palace? Okay. Oh, still someone left. Hmm. Well, that's nice for you. You're able to survive. How is it that this guy knows how to fight much better with his fairy? I take it back. Since he literally changed just from a few words. I mean, I guess they're going to try talking to the beast. I don't really see any other way they could go up against him. Talk later, go! Oh my god. Yep, of course, they're gonna talk to it. Eh. Alright. See you guys after this. Alrighty, that was that. I guess you guys could probably tell throughout my reaction that, you know, it's not exactly something... I don't want to be, like, too mean on this series. I keep on saying this, but, you know, the best way I could use to describe it is that the anime or the, you know, the series itself, it's going through the motions of these particular tropes, these particular storylines, but it's not really being presented in a convincing manner, right? And this goes for, you know, the dialogue, the talk between Maria and Veronica, all of it actually, you know, the part between Wolfram and Free, although honestly I felt like that was probably the best dialogue out of this entire episode. And then, of course, we have the part with the Colonel as well, and then the entire, you know, backstory or thinking process of the Eins Order, right? Specifically, let's talk about Wolfram a little bit, right? Because originally I was almost like, okay, this seems to be, it's presented in, at least the dialogue and whatnot, it's in a more convincing manner. You could feel that, you know, there's a degree of authenticity there, and, you know, Wolfram could really be convinced by Free's words, right? He makes a lot of good points and a lot of logical sense, appeals to his emotions and appeals to his logic as well, and that's a good thing, right? Now, the thing that kind of got me later on is that suddenly Wolfram just did a complete 180 and decided to fight alongside Free, right? I feel like there's a big gap between that. You know, it's one thing to you know, punch him down and start making him think, like, what is it that he really wants, and so on and so forth. But it's another thing to just, you know, immediately bring him back as a fighting partner alongside Free, right? Now, what could they have done to make this a little bit better? They could have had some more, you know, while Wolf was, you know, punched in the face and lying there on the ground, they could do some flashbacks, right? Allowing him to think back to his family and whatnot. You know, literally the entire point of Free was that, hey, you're still alive, you're still here, you can keep the memories of your loved ones, so on and so forth, and that would be a good point to start doing that thing, right? Or having some internal monologue, like questioning himself, like, what was it that he's actually fighting for? Is this something that he really wants? You know, this kind of stuff to present it better to us. I mean, like, I know this is the second to last episode, so maybe they're a little bit short on time, but honestly, there's a lot of things that could have been cut out in order for them to further develop these characters, at least in a much more believable way that presented this kind of conclusion, right? I'm not saying that it's not possible to have this kind of development. It's a pretty tried and true cliche here, but as with all the episodes so far, with a lot of the events and whatnot, I just feel like it's basically just going through the motion, right? It's sort of trying to emulate these particular tropes and these particular characteristics, but not really fully diving in, right? It's like dipping its toes in to the pool and not fully jumping in and getting your body wet, as an analogy, I guess you could say. So they could have, even though that could be believable, and it's also a logical outcome of it, and it's a pretty tried and true outcome as well. They could have executed it a lot better. And I feel like that's a recurring theme throughout this series as well. I must have said the word execution a ton of times up to now. But yeah, there's some times when I am particularly annoyed that the execution isn't as good as it could have been. Because at the end of the day, there is a reason why I kept watching this, right? And that is because I believed in the potential it had. But it just keeps on squandering. So what can I say? And let's talk a little bit about the Colonel, right? I have my complaints about that scene as well. Like, the fight between the Colonel and the director, like, sure, whatever. So the Colonel is battle-crazed dude. He's crazy. He's insane. He just wants to live on the battlefield. Fine, whatever. The point that I want to make, however, is with his band of mercenaries, right? If you guys recall, when they first came onto the scene, when we were first introduced to them, they were total badasses, right? Or I guess not really badasses, but they were very well trained, and they were battle-hardened veterans, and the Dorothea had a huge amount of trouble fighting back against them, right? During that particular train scene, where one of their own died. We could see them basically, even though they were fighting in sort of similar positions as well, I guess, each having a cover and then returning fire to each other, we could see that Dorothea was basically at the disadvantage throughout the entire battle. And now suddenly, in this episode, even though the Colonel's men were on elevated positions, they had the high ground, they had the battlefield advantage, and Dorothea was literally shooting up at them. All of a sudden, they became so worse shots, and then all of a sudden, all of Dorothea became sharpshooters and whatnot, and then just wiped them completely out. Like, where's the logic in that, right? It's, if you wanted to take them out, again, there's a lot of different methods that you could write to make it like that, but you need to keep internally consistent with your logic on how you portray them. They are not just some run-of-the-mill militia or some band members or whatnot. Those are veterans of war. They know how to do stuff, so on and so forth. They should have had a much better fighting chance than was portrayed over here. Right, and don't get me on the because their leader died, so morale dropped or whatnot. Like, they're soldiers, right? At the end of the day, they were former soldiers. They know what to do. So yeah, so that particular scene was also as well. But yeah, what can you say about it, right? And then one final note I want to make is in regards to the Ein's Order, right? Because I still can't quite understand, like, what exactly is their big plan. So they revived this sort of divine beast and whatnot, and then they sacrificed themselves to it. Like, what exactly are they trying to accomplish? Like, do they believe they'll go to heaven or something? Like, some kind of version of fairy heaven if they're killed by the divine beast? What's up with this, right? And then also, leaving someone behind to guide the survivors as they live on. So what's the big idea? Is it more of a situation where maybe humans are overpopulated, like it's the population of humans and the fact that they're destroying the environment and whatnot, it's endangering fairies, so they sort of try to equal it out by killing off an equal amount of humans as well? Is that what this entire thing is? Sort of like a purge of a sense? Sort of like a Noah's Ark situation, I guess you could say, where, everybody is purged, and then you still have some people remaining at the end to rebuild everything, right? Is it, that kind of story, that kind of situation? I mean, I would presume so. I can't really find a better excuse or a better reason for them to do the things that they do. And like, this cult is crazy. Like, what do they even seek to accomplish by this, right? Normally with a lot of this kind of stuff, you would say, even with the environmental reasons as well. Like, I've read many stories that dealt with some sort of matter, like, we've got to save the environment, so we purge all the humans, but most of the time, at the end of the day, the ones that are doing the purging, they survive, right? They survive till the end. And here we got a bunch of the Ein's Order just willingly sacrifice themselves, and only one is left, supposedly just one, leading the remaining people that survives. Like, what is up with that? I guess potentially it could also be, like I said, and being purged by the divine beast would send you to some version of heaven, right? Maybe that makes a little bit more sense. But anyways, hopefully we'll get an answer to that question next episode. Otherwise, this is going to be a very confusing set of events where we don't even really know what the antagonists are trying to do here, right? And so how exactly are they going to stop it, right? So at the very end, I did say that probably they're going to talk to it, right? Otherwise, I feel like the difference in power is a little bit too high. But it seems that perhaps, the will, the conscience of the Divine Beast, it doesn't really want to do something like this. So, rather than just negotiating, I guess they could just talk with it, understand that it doesn't really want to harm humans and whatnot. And then my next best guess would be that perhaps if they carve out the fairy-possessed organ out of the Divine Beast, then it would lose its power, and then everything would be fine again, right? So I guess that would be the my best guess as to how to stop the Divine Beast, right? And then again at the very end, are fairies going to disappear? Don't really know, but I guess we'll find out in the next episode, right? So anyways, this has been Fairy Gone episode 23. See you guys for the grand finale next week. Until then, bye bye.